Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Eve Galanter, and I would like to introduce Will Okovich, running for Alder in District 2. As we begin, please give an opening statement about the educational, vocational, and civic experience you have which prepares you for this office and why you are running for Alder.
Thank you, Eve. Yes, hi, I'm Will. I have been a City of Madison resident for about 10 years. Like a lot of people, I came here to go to university, UW-Madison, and then I found a job, fell in love with the city, stayed here afterwards. My career was, I started as an engineer. I worked at Epic for a little bit. I eventually left Epic, worked at another local company, got a master's, and now I work at another company based in Madison called Find Help. I'm very proud of the work we do, but it's not a big part of the reason why I'm running. My civic experience, I have founded and am a lead for Madison is for People, which is a local Yes in My Backyard group. It's a pro-housing advocacy group. We have done a lot of work with the city, with alders, on local developments and with developers and neighborhoods on building and improving projects that help improve neighborhoods and help getting housing built. I also served as the development chair and the vice president of the Tenny Lapham Neighborhood Association, and I was on the City of Madison Housing Strategy Committee for the last year. It has closed and it's now been combined with Landlord Tenant Issues Committee and is the Housing Policy Committee. I'm running because I really care about this district. Uh, I really care about the people who live in here. The top issues I see affecting the people in my district and that also affect other people in the city are housing costs. And we often call that the housing crisis, but I prefer to call it housing crises because I see it as multiple different issues. Transportation, which includes reliable transit and active mobility networks, including bike lanes and safe pedestrian walking areas, and environment, including climate change, which in my mind, I categorize as both mitigation. So what can we do to reduce our city's climate carbon emissions? And resilience. What can we do to help prevent the effects of climate change from really affecting our city? Yeah, that's who I am.
How would you evaluate the city's current efforts to address homelessness and increase the amount of affordable housing? Are there additional steps the city should take to address these issues?
Yep. Thank you for the question. So for homeless services, a lot of our previous homeless services have been funded using temporary ARPA funds from the federal government. Uh, those are expiring. With the city's current budget state, it's important that we find a stable method for funding homeless services, which includes getting people stabilized, getting their basic needs met, and getting them in stable housing, not just funding services at the shelter level. In terms of building affordable housing, I think the city has taken a lot of steps in the right direction. They have been utilizing their land banking fund. That was started a few years ago and is really just starting to get underway. I think opportunities like the Brayton lot, which are not in District 2, but are right across East Washington from District 2, are great opportunities to leverage land banking to build mixed income affordable housing. So housing across the affordability spectrum. Typically, we categorize housing as AMI, so percent of area median income. One of the things I want to do as an alder is really focus on people in that 30% and below area median income, who are people who are really struggling. The city has been utilizing LIHTC funds and working with developers to get housing in the 60 to 120% of area median income, which I don't know the exact numbers, but is somebody working a typical job in Madison. It could be a firefighter or a teacher would probably fall in that range. And we have gotten a lot of those units built, but it's also critical that we get those units built at the 30% level.
What actions or programs would you support to enhance public safety in Madison? And in particular, what is your position on the use of body cameras by Madison police officers, given the recent demonstration project?
So I think the best way to improve public safety from a police to citizenship interaction is to reduce interactions that can result in conflict. And for me, that means funding and prioritizing cares so that people who have drug addictions or mental illnesses are not being put in situations, and also police are not being put in situations where they don't have the tools where they can effectively deal with this issue. When it comes to body cameras, I'm generally supportive, but as I've been learning more about this issue, what it comes down to is resourcing and effectiveness. The purpose of body cameras is to prevent police abuse and to increase openness and awareness of what police are actually doing. To do that requires a lot of money spent on body cameras themselves. It requires money spent on operations for the body cameras. It requires an officer to review footage. And a lot of that is very expensive. Uh, from what I'm hearing, a lot of police captains in the area or precinct captains in the area, they would rather use that money to fund community policing. And so to me, I'm generally supportive of body cameras. I think we need to be aware that they're not a perfect method for preventing violence. They are fairly expensive, and it really comes down to, do police want to do body cameras, or would they rather be spending that money on police time to improve community safety?
In the wake of the recent referendum to increase property taxes, what are your priorities for the city budget?
Thank you. So as I mentioned before, homeless services were primarily funded using ARPA funds. Getting that stabilized would be really important for me. The city did a 5-year operating budget for the first time in the last cycle. And if you look at what they were projecting, they were still planning, even with the referendum passing, to use general fund money and infrastructure charges to help offset some of the essentially what the state has limited in Madison. There's a lot of talk about this, but the state doesn't give Madison their proper share of funding for shared revenue. We get about $30 per person, and the average in Wisconsin is about $140 per person. And we're the state's economic engine. So we frankly just don't get enough money. But prioritizing homeless services, and making sure that we have stable funding. People have talked about the recent surplus from the interest that the city had. That's a one-time surplus. That's great. It's not stable funding. It is going to help us down the line in terms of off-putting some of those infrastructure charges, which fall on property owners and can be somewhat regressive. And so, yeah.
How should Madison balance the need for development with other concerns such as traffic, historic preservation, and conservation of natural areas?
So there's multiple parts to this. Conservation of natural areas, I think a great way to do that is to build where there's already buildings instead of expanding further out and sprawling, or, building in our parks. Nobody wants to sacrifice Madison's amazing parks for housing. We have plenty of area that we can build. In terms of traffic, one of the best ways to do that is to just reduce vehicle miles traveled. The city has been working with, the city has implemented a lot of programs, including transit-oriented development, TOD, transit demand management, TDM, and a few other programs that work to reduce vehicle miles traveled based on how buildings are built and where they're built. Building them close to transit means that people have the opportunity to take the bus instead of driving. Building homes closer to work means people can walk or bike instead of driving. And doing all of that helps reduce traffic, and frankly makes the city a nicer place to live. As far as historic preservation, I'm of the opinion that our process is a little too reactive. We have a very good landmarks commission, but too often it just comes up that a building is being demolished, and then there is uproar, and then we are debating whether or not this building should be demolished. I would prefer a more proactive approach and a more thoughtful and methodical approach that prioritizes preserving truly historic buildings and allowing the city to grow in areas where it's not a historic building. Um,
What are the most critical issues that you see facing the people in your district? And what would you propose to address these?
I think the most critical issue is affordable housing. It comes up a lot when I'm talking to people and knocking doors. I've mentioned some of the things, but getting deeply affordable housing, getting more housing built in general. Madison's actually doing really well in this. One thing that I would like to see is our where our housing is constructed to be more throughout the city in terms of along the entire bus rapid transit route. I think it's a great opportunity to leverage the TOD that I mentioned before and build housing near transit and give people a lot more options. I would like to see more condominiums built as well. That's something that we talked about on the Housing Strategy Committee, and there's a variety of barriers to that. Even mission-driven developers who would like to build condos and are not necessarily thinking solely about profit, are unable to build them for a variety of reasons. That includes taxes, financing, condo liability laws, and a lot of things that are at the state level and out of the city's hands, but the state can take action on it and the federal government can take action on it.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
Uh, Thank you for having me. I would like to say to the audience that I think I'm very well qualified. I've been involved in local politics for quite some time, mostly in the background, but I've been working on building connections. I've been working on meeting people. I have a proven track record of working with the city. I really care about the district, and I'm knowledgeable about what needs to happen and what the city has done. I am really proud of living downtown. I love living downtown, and I am really hopeful for the future of Madison, and I want to be a part of what drives that. If you want to find out more, my website is willakowitz for district2.com. That's four spelled out FOR, and two is the number two. I'm also friends of Will Akowitz at on Facebook and Will Akowitz for District 2 on Instagram. Um, yeah, I would be honored to be your alder, and I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you.
I want to thank Will for speaking with us and thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone that the general election is Tuesday, April 1st. Every election is important. Please vote. And on behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.